New alarm bells ringing tonight on the coronavirus outbreak in this country.
Doctors say the virus is spread through droplets when someone coughs or sneezes.
And I think the business community, it's in their interest that people actually stay home and stop the spread.
For a business that can allow more employees to telecommute, we want you to do that.
Hi, friends. I'm Andy Paul, host of the Sales Enablement Podcast, and I want to encourage you to listen to my brand new special 6-part podcast miniseries titled Selling with Purpose. The team behind Sales Enablement Podcast and I put together this incredible series of inspiring conversations exploring what it means to sell with a mission greater than just hitting your numbers in this era of COVID-19 and beyond. So tune in to hear from world-class enterprise sales leaders and learn how their 6 companies will close $50 billion selling remotely. See how they've supported essential workers with the products and services they need to stay safe and thrive during this time of crisis. Subscribe to Selling with a Purpose now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Guided selling from RingDNA makes your entire sales team more effective by revealing exactly what reps should do and when to do it. Guided selling works by transforming sales data into a curated list of prioritized sales actions. So when reps start their day, they'll never again wonder which prospects and accounts or hot inbound leads to reach out to next. Guided selling even shifts reps' priority in response to real-time buying signals. Finally, even new reps can sell like seasoned ones. Let RingDNA be your guide to success. Learn more at ringdna.com/guided selling. That's ringdna.com/guided selling. It's time to accelerate. Hey friends, this is Andy. Welcome to episode 713 of Accelerate. That's 713 of Accelerate, the sales podcast of record. I have another excellent episode lined up for you today. Joining me as my guest is Dale Dupree. Now, many of you might know Dale from his posts on LinkedIn, his frequent posts. He is the Copier Warrior, and he's an articulate advocate for keeping and emphasizing the human element in sales. Now, we're going to talk about why Dale thinks the time is ripe for a sales rebellion and what the sales rebellion means for the average B2B seller. We'll also get into why Dale believes many sellers are struggling. He believes it's because they're focused on the sales process to the exclusion of the buyer. And for anybody that's listened to the show at all, you know that I wholeheartedly agree with that. That is one of the fundamental problems we're facing in sales today. So we're also going to talk about some of the basics. And Dale's going to share his story about the customer-focused sales philosophy that he learned from his father in the business that he now runs today and how that still guides him in his day-to-day selling. Now, before we get to Dale, I want to take a quick second to talk about the Sales House, the sales performance program for B2B sellers. Now, in the Sales House, I give you the tools to master the skills that are going to elevate you from average to excellent by, first and foremost, winning more of your opportunities. I mean, you know how to build a relationship with a prospect. You've been taught that. But do you know the 4 core relationship skills, the 4 core skills that will enable you to build a trusted relationship with any prospect? I mean, you've been trained how to do a discovery call, certainly, but do you know the 2 most important pieces of information you need to learn from your prospects? And knowing these will make the difference between winning and losing. And I'm sure you've been coached how to qualify an opportunity, but do you know the one agreement above all others that you need to reach with your prospect before they can become truly qualified? I mean, if you're not completely satisfied with your ability to win deals, then the Sales House is the perfect resource you need to reach the next level and the level above that. Members get unlimited access to checklists, playbooks, courses, coaching, mentoring, and an engaged community to help you sell with more confidence, trust, impact, and acumen. So come learn how to become the best version of yourself in the Sales House. Visit thesaleshouse.com. That is thesaleshouse.com. Look forward to seeing you there. All right, let's jump into it. Dale, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate you having me on.
Well, hey, we've been exchanging communications on LinkedIn for a long time, sharing content. So tell people a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, me. So people will probably know me better as the Copier Warrior, other than Dale Dupree.
The Copier Warrior. Which
some of
means
those funny things. You make a personal brand for yourself, and then it like overtakes your actual person that you are.
And so the Copier Warrior is what?
So the Copier Warrior is a young man that was born back in 1985 with toner running through his blood because his father owned a copier firm when he made his son. So
yeah.
But my whole entire upbringing at my father's small business, and I actually got into music at the time I was 17, toured around the world, headed back to my father's business, as they say, the prodigal son returned. Got into full-time sales at that point. Worked for about 4.5 years under him. And then he sold the company to a much, much larger firm. I became their number one rep my first fiscal year and eventually became their VP of sales after hitting that number one button too many times. Moved on from them to Zeno Office Solutions, which was a global core, which is a Xerox company. So $2 billion firm. Ran the sales department in Orlando for them. And then woke up one day and decided that what I was doing was bigger than just for copy machines and copier sales, and that I needed to start to expand my horizons a little bit and take some risks. So I quit my job, started the Sales Rebellion, and here we are.
Okay, so tell us about music. You toured the world doing what?
So I sang in the band. I played a lot of the instruments as well too, or I guess I thought I played them at least. But
what was the name? What was the name of the band?
The band was called Imperial.
And is there like music out there we can hear?
Yeah, totally. You can still buy my albums if you want. I get paid, so please.
So what's our music?
It's heavy metal.
Heavy metal. Oh man, cool.
Pretty much the opposite of what most people listen to. It was a lot of fun.
And you can still hear?
Yeah. Okay. Thankfully, I wore my headphones or my earplugs every night. So excellent.
So. What? It just wasn't going anywhere, or
no? We were doing absolutely fine. Matter of fact, we were at that breaking point where we were about to take off, but that lifestyle wasn't necessarily what I wanted for my family, and it definitely wasn't what I wanted for some of the members who were struggling with addictions to certain drugs. So it became bigger than just playing music. It was people's livelihoods and their futures. And I had a vision for moving it in a different direction. So we all mutually decided to stop doing it. Although we did continue to play even when I came back and started to help my dad with sales at his company. We continued to play locally around the Southeast, but it fizzled out. But we were signed to an indie label called Pluto Records and then ended up on Warner Brothers Music Group. So
very cool. So is there a reunion in the offing? Reunion tour.
It's funny because we actually have an album pretty much done right now that we haven't released. And I don't know why we haven't released it. Honestly, we could do it at any minute if we wanted to, but just haven't really felt called to. So, but you never know. That might be the reunion. So
yeah, I was gonna say you're afraid of being sucked back in.
Probably. That's all it is.
All right. Well, let's talk about the Sales Rebellion. And so my first question is, what are you rebelling against?
So my vision for the Sales Rebellion is based on my walk as a sales, as an individual contributor and a sales manager. As both, though, the way that I looked at my sales walk is that everybody told me that I had to go to the right or to the left, right? One way or another. I was told that I had to do it this way.
Right.
I have to cold call this way. I have to set appointments this way. I have to converse with my prospects and clients this way. And none of it really seemed like the right thing for me to be doing, quite frankly. Even through sales training that I had taken, I took multiple different forms of sales training, but the one that I actually liked the most was Sandler. That was probably the one that I identified the most. And that one actually opened my mind even further to the thought process that, again, bore the Sales Rebellion, which was that we don't have to be standard salespeople in our walk. We just have to be standard people is what we're really trying to convey to our buyer, that I'm a human on the other end of this phone call. I'm a human on the other end of this walk-in sales call. And what we were doing was creating this just extremely intricate machine in the sales world from what I was observing. to the point that we were driving ourselves and our buyers away from the true form of sales. So that's why the sales rebellion was born.
All right. So, boy, lots of points to unpack there. So what's the true form of sales?
To me, the true form of sales is there is no right answer to that. There is no wrong answer to that either. But to me, the true form of sales is my individual personality, my individual touch that I put into my cadences, into the processes that I take my prospects through, the workflows, the whole 9 yards. But to me, what the true form of sales is just communication, basic human interaction. That's what it really boils down to, is that taking the hello, how are you to the level of the basics, instead of going in and having a conversation with somebody because we're trying to get somewhere with them or to accomplish something for ourselves. That's a selfish mindset and a selfish attitude.
Right.
So that's how I look at it.
Okay. So again, we're rebelling against something. And so what you're saying is that, and I'm not disagreeing necessarily at all, if you've paid attention to what I talk about, is
I know you get it.
is yeah, from my perspective, I see this increasing emphasis on conformity in sales. I mean, I'm substantially older than you are and have been through several sales revolutions and rebellions, so to speak. But it seems like, as I said, given sort of the introduction of a lot of the technology into the sales space these days, is it sort of encourages this conformity, this compliance to a specific model, if you will, and which is really sort of ironic because, these are industries that are really set about and created for the express purpose of disrupting markets, and yet now we have sales processes that are scripted and robotic and so on.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, technology has definitely made it worse, in my opinion. I mean, quite frankly, because instead of using it to accommodate the things that we're trying to accomplish as salespeople, we use it as a crutch constantly. We say, well, I'm just going to automate all my outreach, and here's my generic message that I'm going to write to send to 4,000 people, and I'm going to hit go, and I know that 10 will at least write me back, so that's good enough. I'll hit my quota this month. So I do agree with you in that I don't think tech has necessarily helped us the way that it should have, but it helped me, I mean, extraordinarily. So
sure. So what do you think is, and I agree. I was just writing something for one of my upcoming daily emails is a friend of mine wrote something on LinkedIn this morning talking about sort of taking to tasks what he called supposed sales experts for claiming that it wasn't all about the basics. And
sure.
And the fact, sorry, a little feedback there. But the fact is, it's not, I mean, no one's a bigger advocate for mastering the basics than I am, but it's not all one way or the other. I mean,
sure.
to your point is we need to learn how to integrate the technology to help us do better. Because I think one of the things that's missing, at least in my perspective, interesting in yours, is that you look at all the research data, and it's just saying that sort of year over year, we seem to be doing less well as an industry, right? The percentage of reps making quota and so on. So how do we turn that around?
I hope to turn it around with the mindset that I'm bringing to the table from this respect of what the rebellion stands for, which is that we have to start taking things back. Like, we think a lot about ourselves. When I think of sales and I think of salespeople, I think of all the things that they want to accomplish inside of their own walk, right? If I can think of the last 10 salespeople I talked to, even the conversations typically go like this. There's a complaint about something, and it's usually a process or their boss. There is a mindset that is consistent across the board, which is that I got into sales to make a lot of money, is usually what people tell me. And last but not least is that everybody asks for help on top of it. And I'm talking people that have been in sales for 20 years and people that have been in sales for 2 weeks. You know, it's pretty consistent across the board. It's funny how it works, right? But really what I hear when everybody gets to the end of the statement is that they'd like things to change. They'd like a different mindset and a mentality. They'd like leadership that understands their breaking points and what their perspective on sales is as well too, which to me is where we've disconnected it, is that we've stopped thinking about our buyer. We say we think about them because we say things like, you need to know who your buyer's target market is, and you need to understand how your product works for your buyer. Well, the buyer understands all that shit just the same as we do. And so it is important for us to understand it. But At the same time, it's not a magic pill that's going to suddenly allow the buyer to open up to you. Oh my God, you know my customers. I mean, good for you, salesperson. That's what I think in my head. And most buyers I talk to feel the same way. So when I was out doing outreach, just to kind of give you an idea, and really wrap up the answer to the questions, that when I was out doing outreach, and my mentality was like, I'm just going to go shake hands and learn. That's what I'm going to do. Point blank, I could care less if anybody's buying a copier. But in the same instance, when I would walk in and have those conversations, I always had a piece of interrupt marketing with me, such as brand or something specific that allowed first, right? Yeah. Well, and there's a funny one too, is that donuts are a great thing, but what about an empty box of donuts for your buyer with a message on it that says, I ate these in the car on the way in, because this is the 9th time I've tried to bring you some and you won't get back to me, right? So, the idea though, that to be fun and to be interactive and create entertainment for our buyer, right? I think that if we would stop looking at everything as a process and start looking at everything as just basic, regular human interaction, that again is short-lived, because if you're going to be in a career for 25, 30 years and retire, that's not a lot of time as it is. In the copier industry, every 5 years, a lease renews, right? On average, it's like 42 months or something like that, right? So, I mean, there you go. Like, you're going to do a transaction with this customer 4 times in your career on average, if they stay with you. So I just don't think that we think big enough about sales anymore. We've dumbed it down to these processes and these robotic habits instead of thinking about the bigger picture, which is life.
Interesting. I mean, which I don't disagree with. I mean, I think that basic rules for sales to succeed at sales, and I've got this acronym you may have seen what I've written called BALD, B-A-L-D, 4 core rules to succeed in relationships in life. Yeah, it transfers over. But I think it's less about money motivation. At least what I'm seeing is people say I want to make a lot of money to come into sales, because I think they feel like if they don't say that, people will look badly on them, right? It's like, why are you getting into this if you don't want to make money, right? But the research is fairly consistent, as the top performers are motivated more by service and accomplishment and achievement than money, because they know that it comes if they achieve those others. But it seems like, it's to me, sellers are lost. And I don't know if they're more lost than they've ever been in the past. I mean, it just seems different today somehow. I'm interested in your opinion on this, because I've just been in several conferences the last few days, and a consistent message that we hear is, and part of the reason we launched the Sales House was, I've been trained, but now what? I've been trained, but when I actually get into it with a buyer, no one's really taught us how to think about the situation we're in. And so we've got all this training that's really disproportionately oriented toward top of funnel activities. And while there's no disputing how important it is to get a prospect, is you're not winning the order most of the times in your initial outreach call. And it seems like when you get people in that, they have to do meaningful discovery and needs analysis and qualification, disqualification. There's lost in the woods.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that it's noisy right now out there in the sales world. It's noisy in a lot of different ways too. And as a millennial getting into sales, you get on Google and say, okay, I'm selling this product and I need to learn more about how to do it, right? There's about 1,100 different answers to that question of how do I be better at sales inside of this industry? Everybody's got an opinion on it. And so it can cause people to become quite lost. So I think that the statement that you made about sellers being lost, I mean, that's a very well put, very well articulated statement.
But I sort of behind the question behind that question though is because, I started my career, I was selling mini computers, so not too dissimilar from selling copiers. I'd get in the car, I'd go to business parks, I'd make 30, 40 cold calls a day. Didn't know what the hell I was doing initially, but eventually got good at it. But it seems like so much of the stuff that's written about sales today is about that initial outreach. And again, it's important. We got to learn how to do it. But I just feel like are we spending too much time focused on that and not enough on the rest of what it takes to actually bring somebody across the finish line?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. The the focus is a little too much on the outreach, and mostly because that's what sells to a manager or a VP to bring you in to train in the first place, to train all these people. Hey, I'm going to teach your people how to get, business through the door, not necessarily close it. So we do put a lot of weight on that front end of the sale in the industries, when it comes to sales training. And it can be very convoluted for the salesperson because they almost get to a point where they don't know what to do next. They don't know how to set up a third appointment or a presentation close, they don't even know what questions to ask outside of, do you have this product and can we meet to talk about mine? So it is a great point. And I think really the key to it is that we have created this monster inside of the First Touch because we say it's all about a massive amount of activity. And I think you and I both were raised in an industry where you had to have a massive amount of activity, but I had a whole year that I didn't make one cold call, and I wrote well over $1 million in sales.
Oh, me too. Me too. I mean, it was, that's why I sort of question this. And first of all, love a lot of the guys that are pushing this and it is a necessary part of sales, but it's like, have we gone too far in this in terms of just the percentage of mind share that you need to devote to it as a seller? This is a discipline. Granted, we're seeing a lot of specialization in sales, certainly inside sales teams, SDRs handing things off to AEs. Fine, if it works in the business you're in. Some industries it's not working very well in, and they're making changes to it. But and I agree that everybody should have the ability to prospect. But if you're just come from another planet and come down and do a survey of all the sales literature that's being written, you would think 99% of it is about prospecting. And I'm like, okay, well, great. We've got all these shows. We had inbound, outbound, which are fabulous content. But don't we need a conference on qualification, and don't we need a conference on discovery?
Yeah, definitely. I would think so for sure. Is there anybody even out there talking about it?
Me.
I know you are. You're very adamant.
I'm building the momentum for that. So
yeah, and I think the problem is that most people aren't focused on that because the problem is that they're not getting any new business right now because the old ways don't work anymore, and so they're looking for all these new tricks and tips and tools in order to make that part of their business thrive more. They're not focused on the long-term effect that they're trying to accomplish in the first place. They're more interested in the instant gratification of setting 10 appointments a week, and that's all they care about. So they want your calendar to be full, and that's all when they look at their reps and they look at the sales processes. And maybe in their head too at the same time. I mean, I know some managers that definitely think this way, that they'll help them close the sale. Oh, I just need my rep to set the appointment. I'll help them close the sale. I mean, and that to me is just the wrong attitude. So,
well, yeah. I mean, if I was, it was mortifying to have my manager come with me to close the sale when I was early in my career. I mean, there was nothing more motivating for me than to have my manager say, yeah, on this next call, I think I'll go with you. It's like, bullshit. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That was like, all right, I'm going to go out and I'm going back to that customer right now. We're gonna,
yeah. Get this thing done.
Yeah. Well, but it's to your point though, is I think that we see now with again in certain businesses is this attitude you talked about is, the manager's going to help close, or to a point you made earlier about the sort of excess of top of the funnel activity is, we got these, I think in certain segments, we've got this epidemic of low close rates. And I'm interested in your opinion, because, you came from sort of a similar background than I did, is certainly in like sort of software space, it's not SaaS space, not unusual here, managers being told they need to have 5x pipeline coverage, each month. And,
right.
And then they have a 1 out of 5 close rate, their most qualified opportunities. And it's like crazy, right? You're burning through all these prospects. I'd written a piece a couple weeks ago about, don't know if you saw it, about what if your manager came in and told you, yeah, effective immediately, your quota stays the same, but you can't go over 2x pipeline coverage. What would you do?
That's a great question. I might probably ask, who is inhabiting his body now?
Right, but from a tactical standpoint, if that was the case, and see, I think every company could learn to adapt to that pretty much. What are the steps you would take? Yeah. And instead of saying, let's maximize the number of people in our pipeline because that's meaningless. is, how do we get to the point where we can do a better job discovery, qualification, and so on, so that at the end in our pipeline, really, we're talking to people we're going to close.
Yeah. I always looked at the cold calling aspect of it to be a very, very small part of the puzzle. And I think that's where most of my success came from. And I always train my reps as a VP and a manager to do the same thing. And that once we have them through that first initial hurdle, there's like 19 or 20 more that we've got to jump through. Right. Mm-hmm. But the idea was that that's your work. It's not the prospects. So you got to get them over that first hurdle, which can seem almost impossible. But the problem is that once they're in, you have a 99% chance of losing them pretty much every time, because if you don't follow up, deal's gone, especially in the copier industry, right? For us, and the way that we compete too in the Orlando market, where it was really an issue, was that everything is hyperinflated. So you've got a bunch of people that are coming in like a boss or a VP of the company saying, here are the 10 things that you've got to do inside of the closing appointment or the discovery appointment. Build this value, do this, do that. And then you come back to your boss and you go, hey, they're going to go with this other guy because he's cheaper. And your boss goes, just give him the lowest price possible. So all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, why did we do all this other stuff? What is this mind-numbing game that we're playing at this point? And so reps eventually just stopped doing all the other steps and just said, how low do you need me to go?
Well, no. There's an intermediate step. It's the reps would just wait till the last month or last week of the month, and then go to the manager and say, "Hey, I've done everything you said, and it's down to a price." Yeah. I mean, it's funny how we have a hard time with our motivations as an industry, being the sales industry, because we want to believe that we are buyer centric. And we want to be able to convince the buyer that we have their best interests at heart, and we're just there to serve them until it gets to the last week of the month, and we haven't closed the deal. And oh, by the way, here's a discount to close. And as soon as you do that, the buyer says, "Oh, like I said, it was never really about me," because we love you, we're here to help, but close this month, we'll give an extra 5%, and suddenly, you may get the deal, but the buyer's never going to trust you the way they would have before.
Sure. Yeah, I remember the first time I was in a sales cycle where the customer came back to me. This was probably about a year into working with my father full time. The customer came back to me and said, "Can you match this price?" And it was probably about $30 less per month. And I remember in my head, I just thought, well, yeah, of course I can. This is going to buy for me. But I respectfully told him, well, let me get with my boss, who is my father. And I took it back to him, and I'll never forget what he said, because it affected my career, and that he told me to tell the customer no, basically, in a nutshell. But he gave me a great outlook on how it was that I was supposed to handle and carry myself inside of that conversation, which was to just have an intelligent and honest conversation in my rebuttal. To say, like, look, the price is this from the start and to the finish for these reasons. Mm-hmm. And if you're not comfortable with that, then please, by all means, go with the competition. But again, here's X, Y, and Z as I've laid out inside of this whole entire relationship that I've been building with you. And if you don't go with me, I'll see you in a year, because I'll have to restart the cycle, for 4 years down the road when you buy again. Right. Because it's all about the relationship for me. And although I did scratch my head, I remember in the beginning and thought, it seems like it's going to be harder for me to get a sale that way. That person bought from me, and I did not have to crack on the price. And I felt like I had just, witnessed, glory in its finest form. And that my father had given me the keys to the kingdom, right? And it was wonderful. It was a wonderful feeling. And from there on out, I did have an epiphany, and it's what you're talking about, in that we have a rapid paced approach in sales, and we're always working toward the end of the month. And for me, it was like, well, hold on, because this customer could now be mine for 20 years just based off that one conversation. I just have to nuance what I just did for the next 20 years. Mm-hmm. That's literally, it all clicked for me. And so from there on out, it was much more low pressure, sales tactics. And eventually I turned a complete page in the way that I sold altogether. And again, my father didn't teach me any of the high pressure stuff in the first place. It was more or less me being rebellious and going and learning from other people. So, right. Well, I think to your point, I think that's something that we don't focus on anymore. So,
well, and I think along that same line, this is a point that I get concerned about. It's another area we seem to obsess on in sales, and I think incorrectly, is this whole idea of objections. I mean, to me, that wasn't a price objection. They were just trying to get some money off.
Exactly.
And it was really what they were doing is they were asking a question. And the question really was, is there any way to get this price lower? Because they sort of feel obligated to do that. Wasn't they objected to your price? And I'm sort of amused at so many of these techniques that people talk about handling objections, where you just need to find out the question they're asking. It's really an objection's question. It's not
sure.
What's the problem we're trying to solve here? And it could be in some cases maybe a little more complex sale, and certainly I sold some complex stuff over my career. Somebody had a quote unquote concern about price. A lot of our conversation was, okay, well, fantastic, and we'd established that we're still the best solution for them. So maybe we'll just deliver a little less, right? Maybe there's part of our offer that we'll take out that, so maybe this is not as important, and we can then help you hit your price objective. And it was always, no, we want that too. Oh, okay.
Right.
That's right. So are we good to go ahead? Yeah. And you do that little trade-off game, and they'd already bought in, right?
Sure. Absolutely. Really, I think what inside of negotiations that it really is just our buyer being honest about the way that they're feeling at that moment, because maybe they did through research expect to spend a little less, or maybe they had a budget that the boss asked them to hit. And so they're just being honest inside of their objection, as you put it, with us. And because I think it's the best thing that they can do in the first place, because it allows us to see that where they're at and how they feel. Mm-hmm. And I like the way you put it too, that they kind of feel obligated as well to some degree. And most of that is because of the other salespeople that have been in there in most cases and shown them these lower prices, but they didn't like them, obviously, because they're sitting with me. Mm-hmm. So you got to take those types of things into account. I think that we take everything out of context. The objection really is just an emotion, and it's honesty. That's all it is. It's a raw human emotion. Them saying like, well, I can go with X product or Y product. I like Y product because it's with you, but X product is like 10% less. So can you match it? I mean, really, they're just, in their mind, they're just putting it all together. So it's holding that process.
Yeah. And it's not really an objection. So,
agreed.
Yeah. See, we could simplify all this. So we just need to keep talking. We'll simplify the world, boil it down to its essence.
One interview at a time.
One interview at a time. Well, that's what I'm doing here on the show after 701 this week. I'm sorry, I've lost track. Awesome. Interviews. So, okay. Well, great. Well, unfortunately, I need to cut it short here at this point, but tell people how they can find out more about the Sales Rebellion.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn as Dale Dupree. Obviously, I have a company page as well, too, but the content that I post on LinkedIn comes directly through Dale Dupree. So if you enjoy stories, funny or not, I think they're funny, about old copier battles that I've been in, and then also some wisdom and things that I share as well, too, just from my walk. You find me on LinkedIn, but you can check me out on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Everything is at Sales Rebellion. So feel free to follow me on any social sites. And then I've got a great podcast called Selling Local that I think most people will enjoy. We just kind of dumb down the sales process, kind of like we just did right now, to make people think a little bit more humanistically about their approach to sales and less robotically. So,
yeah, I might quibble with the fact saying we dumbed it down, but I think we elevated it, and that helped.
Sometimes
there's elegance in
factors.
It's hard to make things simple, right? So
it is. Yeah.
So, all right, Dale, it's been a pleasure, and we'll look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate you having me on.
All right, friends, that was Accelerate for this week. First of all, as always, I want to thank you for joining me. Also want to thank my guest, Dale Dupree. And you want to stick around till next week, as my guest will be David Massover. David's the author of a book titled The Salesman's Guide to Dating, a sales book about making connections with an unexpected twist, which the book certainly has. David and I are going to talk about his interesting journey, how a sales expert from the U.S. ended up living in Hungary. And we're also going to dig into why sales training and the development of sales reps, the professional development of sales reps, hasn't really progressed over the last several decades, and how that needs to change. You're really going to enjoy this conversation, so be sure to join us then. And before you go, don't forget to check out the Sales House. the all-in-one sales performance accelerator for B2B sellers just like you. Visit saleshouse.com and look forward to seeing you there. All right, thanks again for joining me. Until next week, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone. RingDNA is the leading sales enablement platform that uses AI to help scale business growth. Trusted by the top companies across the globe, RingDNA offers a suite of powerful tools for every sales role. The RingDNA Dialer radically improves sales productivity and call connection rates, while guided selling helps reps know exactly what to do and when to do it. Conversation AI uses artificial intelligence to surface the most impactful coaching opportunities in real time. So, no matter where your team is working from, the RingDNA platform can help them exponentially increase call connections, opportunities, and revenue. Learn more at ringdna.com/platform. That's ringdna.com/platform.